recording. Ah, there we go. So we just started recording
Okay.
the video. Are you unable to watch it now?
Yeah,
To
it's
join us
not
now?
I, I am struggling with that, so
Okay,
I will have
that's a good.
data to.
Okay, man. So yes, the video will be recorded. It's being recorded now, so I'll share the link
Okay.
on the
So,
group afterwards.
uh, uh, okay. So on this video, are you going to explain coding from start?
Yes, so we have an agenda here. So this is what we're gonna be touching on.
Okay.
Is there anything
So we
specific
should
you're
take.
interested in?
Okay, can you please repeat?
Is there anything specific that you're interested in?
No, no, I just want to learn the skill.
Okay, so what we're touching on is this is the basic stuff. So we're starting from zero. If that's what you're interested in, then this is it. This is zero.
Yeah.
We're going from the ground up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm interested. I want to learn this thing.
Yeah, then you've come to the right place. Okay, so
Okay.
let's
Yeah,
let's get
you can
started.
continue.
Okay. Let's get started. So this is the agenda. So the way this lesson is structured is that we're gonna be looking at there's a program that we're gonna be building as we go with each lesson. So we look at that in the problem to be solved, and then we'll look at primitive data types, and then we'll understand what are primitive data types and the problem that they solve and how we are able to use them when we build programs. I'll look at examples of primitive data types. We'll touch on non-primitive data types. What are they? Then we'll touch on variables and strings. And in the end, we're gonna use the concepts we touch on now in building our program. So everything that we're gonna touch on here is gonna be useful.
Okay,
Yeah, if you have a question, just I don't even think you need to mute. It's just me and you here. You can just be talking.
not problem. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So today's lesson, the problem is you wanna create a limited word processor program which will utilize the command line. So our program will allow the user to open up a file and write to the file using the command line. So it will provide the user with the following options: the option to create a new file, to write to a file, to rename a file, to delete a paragraph from a file, and to delete a file. So
Okay.
we'll only be dealing with text files just to make sure that it does not get complicated. I've decided that let's only just focus on text files.
Okay, no problem.
In today's lesson, we will not be touching files, but we'll just be touching on the basic building blocks we need for our program. And we'll build enough to be able to ask the user to select any option. And we'll also be able to store what the user has selected.
Okay. Which
Okay. So
variable?
here's, yes.
It's variables. The storage.
Yes. Gonna be using variables, so we'll touch onto that.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's the overview of the program. Provide the user with a list of options and give them a chance to make a selection. Save the user selection, and then we'll do something depending on the selection that they made. Okay. So let's talk about primitive data types. If you think about programs, I'll use TikTok for example. Right? So TikTok, what it does is that it takes in data, your data, and then it does something with it. So we upload video, which to the program is nothing more than just data. The video you upload is just data, and then that data gets shared, stored, and a whole host of other things.
Sure.
So programs take in data from users and they manipulate it in a number of ways. So the types of data that you can get from the user, you can get a number, you can get text like WhatsApp, when we're texting, sending messages. You can get files and you can get videos like with the TikTok example, and there are plenty more types of data that programs do take in. For this slide, I've only listed this three. So, is this clear?
Yes, clear.
Okay, so what are primitive data types? So, primitive data types are data types which are built into the programming language. So, they form the basis of all other data types. So, they are just those data types that are just there in every programming languages. It's the type of data that's just there in
Okay,
all programming languages. So these are integer. So every programming language has the concept of an integer. It's how we're able to take in numbers, manipulate numbers in that language. Another example is a boolean, a true and false. So every language has the concept of a true and false, the primitive data type in Python, float or double. So in some programming languages, you'd find that they call it a float. In other programming languages, it's a double. In Java, as you may know, it's a float and a double. So they have these two. Though the float is a long in Java, it's a long and a double, but it's
okay,
just decimal numbers. And then we have strings. Strings are text, right? And so if you look at this example here, when we listed various data types, we included list. But then in this example here of primitive data types, we don't have the file. So the reason we don't have the file here is because file is not a primitive data type. File is a non-primitive data type. It's still a type of data, but it's a non-primitive data type.
okay,
This means that a file is a complex, so a non-primitive data type is a complex type of data which is composed of multiple primitive data types. And then I've provided an example here. A file can contain a bunch of numbers, text, and all of these numbers, primitive data type, text, primitive data types. So you can have a file which contains both of these things, and that makes the file itself complex. So a file is not a primitive data type, it's a
so,
non-primitive data type.
so it means that you can't set it to a specific variable as string, integer, or boolean.
You can. What it means is that files, yes, you can do that.
Okay,
You can set it to a variable, and that's because variables are just references. So when you
okay,
have a file, so when you have a file and you create a variable, the variable is just referencing to the file. It has no uh it does not, what is it, whether it variables refer to both primitive and non-primitive types. They don't discriminate. They're just references at the end of the day.
okay, I understand.
Okay, so in Java, mostly because Java is object oriented, everything is, its classes there. If you want to build something, you create a class. So a class, it's an example of a non-primitive data type. Because if you create a class, the class itself become a type, and it stores in data, and it can do complex operations depending on how you've defined it.
Okay,
So the class that you write is a data type, but it's not built into the programming language. You created it yourself. And that's what makes your class a non-primitive data type, because that's what primitive data types are.
okay, I understand. I understand.
Yeah, in your day-to-day language, the distinction you won't really be focused on about. This is more theoretical. Just so you know that, okay, there's a primitive data type
And
and
then
there's a non-primitive data type.
so
But
none,
most
none is
what?
not, like the classes. It's what you said. Your class two, in a way.
Yes, like you define the class yourself. It does not come. Your class did not come with a programming language. So your
Oh,
Java class did not come with Java.
oh. So
You created your class.
the primitive is like integers. You know that 8 is like an integer, something like that.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, I see.
Yeah. So this is just the theory. Like when you're writing code, you really, as long as it works and does what you wanna do, and it follows the rules of the language. But this is just more theory to make you understand that when it comes to data, we have different types of data. And the
Okay.
reason this is important to know is because at the end of the day, when you write programs, you're dealing with data. Programs deal with data, they manipulate data, they move data around. So it's important to understand that there's different types of data. There's primitives, non-primitives, and here are examples of primitive and non-primitives.
Okay.
So I just made that note here that any class that you create is a non-primitive data type. That's because your class will store data. If you think about Java, when you object oriented, you have actually, if you think about variables, variables store data, and variables are typically found within a class, specifically in Java. Like you have variables within a class, that class stores in data using variables. And again, your class is not built into the programming language. So that makes your class a non primitive data type.
Sharp.
Okay, and then here I just drill down into an integer. This is a number, a whole number. An integer is a whole number. One, two, three, so forth.
Okay.
If it's 1.2, it's not an integer. 2.2, not an integer. A boolean is a true or false. That's it. There's only true or false. That's a boolean. A float or a double is a decimal number. In some programming languages, this is called a float, which stands for floating point number, and it is called a double in others. So here's some of the examples: 102.34, 1.2, and so forth. And then you have a string. This is mostly what you're gonna be. A string is a sequence of characters enclosed within either a single, double, or triple quotation marks. Here are some examples. Hello world. There's a single quotation mark there, double here, triple here. This makes these are strings.
Okay.
The opening,
May I please ask something?
yes.
So what is the difference between the double, triple, and the single one?
Really, it's up to you which one you wanna use.
Whichever way.
Yeah, you can go with a single, you can go with a double. Although in Python, a triple, so a triple quotation mark in Python is
Yes.
what's called a doc string. It's still a string, but it's a specific type of a string. So
Mm,
typically, most people just use a single or a double. But yes, you can use a triple quotation marks. It's up to you.
Sorry. Can I please ask a question?
Yes.
So, okay, sorry. Good evening. I meant to ask. So, if I use the double quotation or triple quotation, is it gonna change my code in any way, or am I gonna be penalized if I use a triple or double quotation, or
No,
it doesn't matter?
it doesn't matter. It's still a string.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. So that's just as soon as you see a sequence of characters enclosed within single, double, or triple quotation marks, it's a string. So let me just make an example here. So here we have hello world in a single. So this is the same as hello world in a double, just like this. Just
okay.
a matter of preference. So just try the same.
Okay.
And then even here is the same as how are you doing? Like that. Yeah. This one I'll need to because in Python when it's like this triple quotation mark, this is a doc string. So I'll need to just double check. I know it will do the same thing, but yes, these two are the same. The quotation, the opening and closing quotation marks need to match. This is important. If you if you start with a single, you can't end with a double.
Okay.
You can't do this. This is wrong. This is not a string. This is something else now. You don't have a string here. So the closing and ending have to match. That's important. So that's strings.
Sharp.
Okay. So let's get into our program now. So we will be informing the user of all the choices they have to make. If you still remember that overview, we're here now, first place. So we'll be informing the user of the choices they have to make. To achieve this, we will need to construct the message, which will be a string, and print it out to our user. Afterwards, they will provide us with their choice, right? So then here we have that message. This is the message that we're going to be using. So we've constructed it. We'll copy it and paste it in our code shortly. So let me just create a file here and say lesson. Yep. So we'll come in and paste in here. Let's just wait a minute. Let's come to variables. What are variables? So computers store data in memory. Could be a hard drive. It could be a file, which again is stored on the hard drive. But data is stored in memory. And memory have what's called memory addresses. These are usually, let me Google an example of a memory address so that you guys can see what a memory address looks like if you don't know. You see, these are like stuff like this, numbers like this. This is a memory address, an example of a memory address. So when you have something like this is a specific location to say of like in the address space.
Okay.
So variables are the equivalent of this. It's like this, but human readable. So variables are the equivalent of human readable memory addresses. So instead of having to reference data in memory using this, we use variables. And one of the beauties about variables is that if your data, say we're using memory addresses, and you put in some piece of data in this location, you have to access it using this specific location. But if you have a variable, your data can be stored in anywhere. You don't need to know where your data is stored specifically. Python handles that for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, so it could be stored in like local memory, your hard drive or wherever. We just know we have a variable and it references this data which lives in some memory address. We don't know the memory address. We don't need to know. We just reference the data using variables. And then here I gave an example, how we refer to things in our daily life, like when you're going to the mall. A mall is a place which has a location, and when you're going to that location, you never refer to the mall using its location, right? You always use the name of the mall. Like I'm going to Canal Walk, which has a location. It's like something Boulevard Street. Or like when you're going to Vusani's house, you never say you're going to like 17 Clipper Road. You always say you're going to Vusani's house.
yeah.
So those names are examples of variables, since they refer to like actual things that exist and are in a particular location. So let's come to an example here. So if you look at name here, name equals to Vusani Makomu. If you remember from when we talked about strings, Vusani Makomo is an example of a string. How
Mm.
do we know that?
Because it's a sequence of letters.
Yes, that's how. So in this example, name is the variable, and then Vusani Makomo is the data that the variable refers to.
Yes.
So for our program, we will need to store the choice that the user makes. To achieve this, we will define a variable. So the reason we're defining a variable is so that when our user gives us a choice, we want to store it somewhere so that we don't lose it and we can also refer to it in the future. So we're gonna, so this is the code we have here. So I'm just gonna,
Mm,
so this is, so I'll just copy this message here. Okay, so user choice equals to input, paste that. There we go. Let's make it look nice. Okay, so this is the same code we have here on the slide. Okay, we never touched on input, right? We only touched on strings and variables. We didn't touch on input. Input is a Python function that allows us to be able to receive input from the user using the command line.
okay.
Uh, we will touch on this in a future lesson, but since this is like we've already touched on this in a future lesson. I've shared the slides in the group. But Python is a input is a Python function that allows us to get input from the user, which is what we want to do. You know, we're printing this out to them, and we want them to make a choice. So we want to get their choice. Once we have it, we're storing it in this variable user choice. And then this here, this is /n, it's called a new line character, and it represents a new line. So if we print our message, do you see how it's represented?
Yes. Yeah.
So if we remove this new line character, which I'm gonna do shortly, there's not gonna be a new line here. So this string is just gonna continue from here. And then if we remove this here, so this all of these things are gonna be in one line. You'll see. So all of these things will be in one line. So let's run that again, and you see.
Okay.
So basically, our new line, we say, okay, print this, and then when you get here, go to a new line, and then print this, and then when you get here, go to a new line. So let's just run this and see. You see, it prints out this, and then when it gets to list, here it comes to a new line. Prints out this, when it gets here, it comes to a new line, and then it just prints all of this in one line. But this isn't what we want. It doesn't look nice. So we're just gonna put in new lines at the end of here, at the end of it. So we could have put the new line anyway. You can put it, okay, so you can put it here, like in the middle of this word. It will still do that
And you.
because, yeah, you see,
Yeah.
welcome to our word, were, and then new line depressor, right? Which doesn't make sense for us. So we remove that there, and then boom, look nice with that new line. Okay. So let's look at this program for now. So here, when we run this, it runs and then it waits for that input from our user, right? So if our user selects one, okay, we're not doing anything with it, so it just ends. But we can come in here and we can print that variable. We can say print you have selected option number, and then we can print that user choice. So we're referring to the data they gave us here. The
Mm,
beauty of variables, you know, we can just refer to that because we know that whatever it is they input here is going to get stored in this variable, and then we can just refer to it using the variable name.
okay.
So when we run it here and we give it 1 and we run it, you have selected option number 1.
Okay. May I please ask something?
Yes.
So why did it print at first before you put the print function?
Okay,
When?
so
Yeah.
the way the input function works is that it gets input from the user, as I've said.
Okay. Oh, so
And it also it prints out whatever it is you've given it and then waits for input. So
okay.
if there was nothing here,
Yeah.
It's gonna print nothing,
Or
which
because
is like
yeah.
nothing, right? So let's run this. You're obviously gonna see nothing. Now it's just waiting for that input, and then we give it one, and then it just takes it. But
Oh,
if we have here, let's have a string that says this is for testing, and then we're shouting. Let's shout. You see, it prints out that, and then it waits for input. Do you see this arrow that's blinking?
yeah.
It
Uh,
shows that the program is waiting for input. It's waiting.
I
And
understand
then we can just enter our input from there. And then we run it. It tells us you've entered this and this.
what you printed. Okay.
Yeah, what you entered. So what you entered got stored in user choice and then it was printed here because we have that print statement.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, perfectly.
Yeah. So, okay, so there's that. So when it comes to strings, you can format strings, you know. So this isn't, I wanted us to touch on this because it's important that you know that strings, so when it comes to these primitive data types, they have methods and operations that you can perform in them. So when it comes to string, you can format them and make them look nice, right? So I've decided that for our program, we're gonna be formatting this message and just transform it all together. When we run it, it's still gonna print out. So when we run it, it's still gonna print out this, but then here in the code, we're gonna format it and make it look different. You'll see what I'm talking about. So we're formatting to make the code look cleaner and easy to understand. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna remove our message from the input and define it separately in a variable. Right. So we're gonna remove it here. And then we're gonna come in here and say message, define that variable, and then we're gonna put our message. We know
Okay.
that when it comes here and we wanna import, we can just refer to that message using the variable.
Okay.
And
Oh.
if you I want to bring to your attention like my naming of variables. Do you see how like when you look at my variables, it makes sense what the variable references?
Yeah.
Yeah, so please always try and do that when you write code. You know, don't give your code variables like m, and then
Oh.
here you like m, and then here you like I or e. Like when I look at your code, it do you see how it's difficult to understand what's going on?
Yeah. Because of the letters.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
just always give it names that make sense to us human. The code doesn't care whether it's E or it's M, but when somebody else or yourself in the future and you're looking at your code, you want to understand what it is you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have that there, and then input, give it message, it will print out this message. Okay, and then I think this only takes in a string input. Like if you give it one, let's see what it does. One, there we go. Oh, it does take in a number. Do you see?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you could just do this. So there's that one, or you could just put this one like this, which is now a string. Then you still have the same thing. And then when you run this, it still takes in that number and prints it out. And then maybe here you can put in that new line character, right? And then it's taking the input in the new line. You can write your input, run it, it prints it out. Whereas if you have a number, you can't add in that new line character like this. That's going to give out an error because this new line character has to be enclosed within a string. But if you put it like this, it's still going to give you an error because you have a number and a string. Python is confused as to what you're doing. But then if you add them like this, I don't think this is going to work because you're adding a number and a string. Let's see what's going to happen. You see, gives you that error to say, yo, man, you can't add an integer and a string. What are you doing?
Mm.
Don't do that. but then
Yeah.
you can convert this into a string like this. I know you have a string and a string. You're
Okay.
like, yo man, add these two together. Person will like, I got you. So it added those two, and then you see it there's that new line now. We're on a new line. So this is one of the methods you can do with a string. So this is called concatenation. You're adding two strings together. So when you add two strings together, you use the plus sign, and you have a string. So there's the two strings you're adding together get added into one string.
Okay.
So I wanna show you an example here of what we mean. So again, this is not a number, guys. This is not a number. I know it looks like a number, but this is not a number. This is a string that contains one. It's not a number. And let me show you an example, because some people might think it's a number. So if you have 1 plus 1, this will not give you 2 because you're not adding numbers here. You're adding two strings.
So it's gonna be 1 1 basically.
Yes, it's gonna be 1 1.
Okay.
So again, you see, yeah, it was 1 1. So these two strings got added into one, and then it put in example here, which was 1 1, and then it printed it out. So this is concatenation, one of the operations of a string.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we did this part here. So the second one is let's remove the options from the message and replace them with placeholders. So by options, this is let's remove this and replace them with placeholders. So in Python, a placeholder is represented by curly braces. So that's a placeholder. So that's a placeholder. So let me just do this. So this is another. So these are placeholders. I'll touch into what's a placeholder shortly.
Can I ask? Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Won't Python read these brackets as a tuple list?
It depends on what you depends on what you do. So if we do this, so if you come in here and you say print message like this, then Python will see this as just curly braces, not placeholders.
Okay.
So like if I print this, it's just gonna print, you see, like that.
Oh, okay.
But in order for Python to know that, oh, these are these are placeholders, and I actually need to be replacing this with data, there's a function called format on strings. We're gonna be touching on that shortly. So for now, I just wanted to replace this. So once we've done that, so placeholders, they're represented by curly braces, allow us to assign data to the string at a later stage. So here we can be able to assign your Python, replace this with option 1, which we saw was so let me just put out comments here. So this was our what was it? So there we go. So this was option 1. So we're gonna call that format method. So placeholders allow us to be able to say Python, hey, replace this guy here with this guy. And then Python will be able to do that before it prints, but we'll get to doing that shortly. For now, just know that placeholders in Python are represented by curly braces. Now, this is something that can be really handy if, let's say, we were getting these options from the internet. Do you see how currently we have them hard coded? We had them hard coded here. We're like, oh, this is option 1, but it could very well be that maybe our program communicates with a database somewhere, and that database gives us the list of options to display to the user. Placeholders would come in handy for that case because we would then be able to say, okay, Python, there's supposed to be something here, and we're going to put a placeholder. Say, Python, there's supposed to be something here. I'm going to get it to you at a later stage. And so we were going to be able to connect to our database and say, database, give me those options. Once we have those options, we were going to then say, Python, here are the options. And Python was going to be able to replace our placeholders with the data. So that's one use case where placeholders are really, really useful. So define the options separately and store each in a variable. So we're going to do that. So for this case, this concept of placeholders is really, it might feel like it's overkill. And the reason for that is it's because, I mean, we're not getting our options from a secondary source. We have them right here. So if this was production code, it really wouldn't make much sense for you to have placeholders for something that you already have. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but I just want to show you guys this concept of placeholders. Option 4, option 5. Bam. Okay, so we've defined them in a separate variable. Okay, so we did that. So replace the placeholders in our message with the option. So, and this is what we do. So this is how we do it. We say, so you can have a different variable. So let's say replaced message. For this notes, on these notes, if you look, I'm still using the same variable, but I want to show you. I want to show you something that replaced message equals to message dot format, and then now we have to give the values, or rather the variables, or whatever it is in your case, that Python will need to replace the placeholders with. So in this case, it's option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4, option 5, like that. So what this does is that this is going to look at message and it's going to say, okay, the first placeholder replace with this guy, or whatever this guy is. Second placeholder replace with this guy. Third placeholder like this, like this, like that. So if we come in here and we print message will still be printed with curly braces. So this will format, what is it? It will replace this data on message, and then it will store the new message with the replaced data on this variable message. But I think this one will still have the same placeholders. So if we run this here, you see how when we print message, it's still printing with those placeholders.
Yeah.
So let me just comment this out. So what I did in the screenshot, I basically said, what I did in the notes here, I said message equals to message.format. So basically what that does is that it will replace the placeholders with the data, and then it will now have a new string which has data, and then it will put that new string where message used to stay before. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So basically now when we print message, it's gonna boom, it replaces those placeholders with our data.
Okay. Okay.
Now the code order is important. The order in which you specify your value is important. If I specify option 4 in front of option 1, Python isn't gonna be like, yo, okay, man, I think this guy is option 4. Let me replace this guy here on number 4. No, Python just gonna say, okay, first guy, you coming here. Second guy, you coming here, my man.
So
Third
everything needs
guy,
to be in order, ne?
what?
Everything needs to be in order.
Yes, it has to be in the order you want it to be. So if I put this in this order, this is our fourth option. But do you see how now it's like it's coming up as our first option?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes,
Again,
yes.
another mistake you can have is maybe you have 5 placeholders here, but then maybe you have like three options. This will cause an error
Mm.
because Python is going, yo, man, there's 5 placeholders here. But it's like four guys. What am I supposed to do now? And that's what the error is about. To say, yo, man, I'm supposed to be getting five guys here. You gave me three guys. What do you want me to do? So Python is just throwing out an error. And you see how like when you look at the code now, there's literally no errors. The code looks fine, but it's only when you run it that it
Um,
fails.
can I also ask something? I think I
Yes.
missed something. The ARGS arguments. What is that?
Oh, okay. So this is args. This is like a Python internal function. So
Oh,
this is not something we define. So it's just basic. So
oh,
our IDEs are fancy, and one of the things they do is like
oh,
they show you.
oh, we
So they
didn't
just
type it down. We didn't type it down.
yeah, no, we didn't type it down. So
Okay.
this is like an IDE thing. So let's say we manually did this. Do you see how it now went out? Oh, it came back.
Oh, okay.
But
It
like, do you
happens
see? Yeah. So they
automatically.
just yeah, it's an IDE feature. So the IDE is just trying to make it easier for us to understand the code. So when you look at the code, you know, okay, this is the format, and then these are the arguments, meaning this data is being provided to this function. Makes it easier for you to understand it, but it's nothing that we wrote or added.
Sure.
So yeah, here this one will fail, and you see when you look at the code, it looks fine. There's no errors or anything like that, but it's only when you run it that it fails. So this is called a runtime error. This type of error, which you see after you've run your program, is a runtime error.
Mm.
So one of the most errors types of errors you're gonna be coming across as you program. Runtime errors, they happen when your program is running. But then when you
Yeah.
look at your code in your IDE or your code editor, it looks fine. There's no errors here. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense.
Okay, so format is a Python function which formats the specified values and sets them inside the strings placeholder. The order in which the values are specified is important, as the function will replace based on that. So this is what our code is supposed to look like. I think it looks clean. Yeah, that's what we have now. So when we run it, oh, that's right. User choice. Delete everything, so user choice here equals to input message. Boom, it still does the same thing. But yeah, this gives us more flexibility. If we were getting our choice from like the internet or something, we would. Another thing we could do is here's another thing we could do. Is like an interesting thing. So we could just have one placeholder here. I think this is maybe better. And then here we can just say, so let's come in here. Let's update this. Right. So I think this might be the best thing to do compared to that one. And I'll show you guys why. Because I think because the previous one we could only replace with 5 options. What happened if we wanted our program to have 30 options? Means we would need to like modify this message, blah blah blah.
Until date.
Yeah. So when it comes in here, so let's say option final option. So we'll just say final option, and then we'll just say option 1 plus option 2 plus option 3. So what are we doing when we do this?
Um,
Still remember?
concatenation.
Yeah.
Concatenation.
Yes. So that's what we're doing. And then we can come in here and say, Python, replace that guy with this guy. You see how that axe disappeared now?
Mm. Okay.
And then when we run it, boom, it's there. So then
Oh,
if we want to add in another option, we just come in here and we say option 6. Option 6 equals to, this is another guy, 6. This is
oh,
another another option, and then we just
So
come in here and we say plus option 6. And then when
basically,
we
the shortest way to do stuff is making a variable and then setting those stuff. So when you print,
no, what are you
yeah.
talking about?
I'm saying that didn't you set the when you concatenated those options, didn't you set them to a variable,
Yes,
which is final option?
yes,
So isn't that what we're doing previously with the you see on message?
yes,
You replace those arguments with final option.
yes,
So I was saying instead of writing them option one, option two, option three, you just simplified it to final option. Or were you doing a different thing?
yes.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
wanted.
so again, it's preference. I feel like when it's like this, it's easier to understand
Okay,
compared to if I just come in here and do this, because I think this will still work. If you do this, if you come in here and you just say, if you just do that, it still work.
okay,
But it's what happens if you like you have 10 more options now? Now you just come in here like plus, 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 plus. Yeah, for me, I just feel like it's too much compared to here. Oh, okay, this is the final option, and that's what we're using here. Okay, on the message. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this one is less complicated.
Yeah, so just preference. So you see how this gives us more. We no longer need to touch our message. If we want to add in another option here, we just come in here. This is another one again, and then we just come in here. We say option 7. Then we just run our thing. Boom. Okay, we need a new line. New line here. Boom. See placeholders. I think this example shows like placeholders are really good. So it just dynamically replaces it here. Okay, so there are plenty of things you can do with strings. We just touched on a few. So and I think we should also look at examples of this. So there's index. So we touched on, okay, when I made these notes, we were only supposed to touch on one thing, but we touched on like concatenation too. You can add two strings together using the plus operator, index and slicing. So let's touch on that because we still have time. So index is when you find a sequence of characters within a string. You can choose to either find a single character or any number that you desire. So let's look at indexing. So when you index a string, so let me have an example here. Hello world. If you're indexing hello world, what that means is you want to find in a smaller string within hello world. So indexing is something like example square brackets. So in Python, the way we index is with square brackets. And then you can either index and put in a single number like this. I'll show you in a minute what this does. So what? So I don't know if you guys know this, but in Python, when we count, we don't start from 1. We count from 0.
Yes, 0.
I
So the
didn't know
start,
that. Yeah.
yeah, the start is 0. So when we have 4 here, we basically say, give me the fourth character like this. So let's print it. Let's run this. So let me comment this out. Run this. Gives us our first character, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is the fifth one because, yeah, we count differently.
So what you accounting letters?
Yeah, so it counts letters. It's counting letters.
It's yeah.
Characters. It's counting because it's a string. It's counting characters.
Okay,
So
but
it's
can I
the
ask?
first one.
So where's the code to count, or is it
You
What do
use
you? No, I mean, what do you mean?
the code? How did you make it count?
No, it's just the way. thingies work in programming. Python does the thing for us. We just tell Python,
Oh,
on this example
yeah.
variable, give me 4. So this 4 just tells Python, give me the character number, the fifth character, which is like the character number 4. And
Oh,
then
okay.
Python will do everything for us, be like on behind the scenes,
Okay,
like you call it that.
honestly, you put okay. I just zoomed in. Oh my, it's you used what is it? Is it brackets? What
Yeah,
are they?
square brackets.
Square
Square
brackets.
brackets. Oh,
Yeah, so these are square brackets. So this is whenever we do this, what we're doing here, we're indexing. So we're indexing a string. So for this example, we're just finding a single character. So this is what I'm talking about here on the notes. So you
okay.
can choose to either find a single character or any number that you desire. So you can choose to say, okay, give me all the characters starting from this character. So we have position 4. So we'll say, give me all the characters after position 4. And the way you do it is you come in here after 4, you
A
put in a
colon.
semicolon
Semicolon.
like that. And then when you run this, Python will say, okay, I'll give you all the thingies. So this is, if I can just comment it out here. So this is square brackets, and then there's a colon, and then another square bracket. So the value that's in here, it's the start value. So this is the start value. And then the value that's in here becomes the end value. Now, in a case where there's no value here, the end value becomes the last character, basically until the end of the string. And then if there's no this, if there's no semicolon and end value, and you just have a start value, Python gives you the character at that particular position. You can choose to not have a start value and have an end value. So the start value could be nothing and you just have an end value. Python will give you starting from the first character of the string until the position you've specified. So here we could have these two examples. So this one starts at 4
Hmm.
until the last character. We could have one that the 4 is after the semicolon, like this. So let's run this. And you see, the first
Mm.
one gives us O and then everything after O. And then the second one gives us everything before O.
Mm. Okay, makes sense.
Now, let's have another example. We
Let's
could have 4 here and then we could have like 8 here. And then you see it just gives us from 4 until 8, which is the
Oh,
OW, O space. You see how it includes the space. So a space is a character in pro. So this is the character.
yeah.
Yeah, and it gets included there. And then the two ones because it's from 4 to 8. So this is called indexing. We're indexing the string. Now, if you give it a value like this, you see there's no error, but like this is, yeah, this is wrong. Oh, no, it's not.
wait. Well, why is it not wrong?
Yeah, so just again, because this number here is greater than, so this number is greater than the length of the string. So Python just gives you the last character and that's it. If that makes
Mm.
sense.
Oh, okay, okay.
Like you gave us, okay, yo, this string is like, there's only 5 characters here. You want 5 million? I'm just going to give you 5 and then that's it. So that's what Python does.
Just gonna give you
Oh,
the last number,
Yeah.
the last letter. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so let's try when we put this before like that.
The first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
wait.
first one, so this is the starting.
How is it still working though?
Yeah, no, look at what's doing. So it printed out nothing. Because Python going, okay, where are you starting? You're basically starting from nowhere and ending nowhere. And that's what printed out nothing. But yeah, it is very unexpected that it will still work in this case. Kind of feel like you should be throwing in an error so that you can be able to go, yeah, this is wrong because this doesn't really make sense. But Python goes, okay, you're starting
Okay.
from, this is after the length of the character, which
And
is, there's nothing after that. If
if we
there's
put
nothing
zero,
after,
Zero is going to be the first digit,
it's gonna be the first digit.
the
what?
first character.
Oh yeah, you did say that we can't zero. Zero is actually H, ne?
Yes, we count from
Yes.
zero.
Oh, okay. Sure. Thanks.
That's even with arrays and list. Every in Python, in programming in general, we count from zeros.
Sure.
In Java, in Python, wherever we count from zeros here. It's important. It can. It'll take a while to get used to if you haven't already. Okay, so trying to understand this the start value is larger than the length of the string, right? And so Python goes, okay, you want to start wherever it is we want to start, which is this number. Our string is already like, what is it? It's reached its we after the string. We've went beyond our string, if that makes sense. And so like it's why there's nothing after that. Like after this hello, like there's nothing after this. After like 30 characters, there's nothing after the length of this character of this string. So it's why to make sense of it, it prints out nothing
Okay.
instead of throwing in an error. But I do believe like an error would have been better to say, yo man, like this is what the fuck? Why what are you asking me here? Right. So again, there's another function, the len function here. So this allows us to find the length of a string. And I think we perhaps need to use it now and say, yo man, Python, what's the length of this string here? 11. So the length is the number of characters. That's the length of a string, the number of characters in the string. So let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I feel like that's weird how like it's weird how like when we're counting them now, it suddenly counts we're counting from one, but like the numbers add up nicely, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you would assume like it would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you count from zero when you're counting the length, you're gonna end up with 10 characters. But if you count from one, you end up with 11. So just keep that distinction that if you're finding the length, you're
Mm,
counting from one. But if you're indexing, you're
yeah.
counting from zero.
It makes sense though. It makes sense.
Yeah. The counting from one makes sense because I mean you're used to it. It's how we count
Yeah,
every day.
it's like logical sense in a way.
Yeah. So then there's another function which is called the split function. So this allows us to split a string into substrings. Same thing with slice. So this is slicing. Here, what we do here, this is slicing. This is an example of slicing because we're slicing the string basically. Like that's what we did. We sliced it up. We ended up with a substring. In a sense, slicing, indexing, but I think it's more indexing than slicing. That yeah, and I don't think it's slicing. Anyway, so Python has a split function that we can use to split up a string into substring based on a delimiter. So a delimiter could be anything. It could be an empty space. It could be a comma. It could be a semicolon. So let's look at an example here of the split function. So we could say example dot split. So if you have it like this, Python will split using the empty space. So this is the same as saying split this. So this is say, so what this says is that on this string, on this variable, split it, cut it in half, all the places where you see an empty space. So when we run this and we print, you see, we now have two strings.
Mhm.
We now have hello and world. They've been cut into half.
Because of the empty space.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's do this. Let's replace the empty space with a comma like this. And we say, I mean, cut this string using empty space. We should be expecting one string. We should be getting one string here because there is no empty space in this string,
Yeah.
which means there's no place for Python to cut this string up in half. And then boom, it's just one.
Okay.
Okay.
We can say your Python cut this using a comma, split it using a comma.
Mhm.
Not sure if you can see that it's two strings, but yes, it is. So
Because
it's one string here. It's in its own quotation
Single
marks, and another one
quotation
here.
mark.
So this is a Python list. So this is a list slash array, depending on, yeah. Some people say it's an, again, in Java, this is an array. Yeah, and in Python it's a list. We'll touch in this on data structures. So when we get to data structures, we'll be touching on list, what to do with list, and a whole host of other operations. Yeah, there are plenty more operations and methods when it comes to strings. I've put up a link here to the Python documentation. If you want to know more about them, I really recommend you just go check it out, browse it, see what they wrote there.
okay.
Thank you.
End of the lesson. We have reached the end of the lesson, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Don't know if you guys have any questions.
I have. Can I ask a question? A few questions.
Yes.
Because I was doing Python and I was wondering if like I don't know how I'd be able to reach you. Maybe you can help me. But I'm currently busy with OOP functions, recursions, and things like that. So I was wondering if like can you also like do things like that?
Yes. Yes, we can do it. Yeah, and unfortunately, I've been looking. I think we might or may not cover loops in this program because for the program that we're building, there really is not much place for us to use loops. But yes, if you have a question around them, feel free to just you can what is it, inbox me, and I
Okay,
can I
thank
can
you.
Yeah.
help you. Also with recursion, there really is no place for us to use it in our program, so we won't be touching on it now. But yes, recursion is a topic that takes it's a little bit difficult. It's one of those ones that it does not make logical sense the first time you hear it, but once you get it, like, you get it, and it stays and it sticks, and then when you see problems in the future that require recursion, you'll just look at problems and be like, yeah, this one I can solve it recursively, and this is how I can do it. But yeah, typically people rarely use recursion. But yes, if you have any
Um.
Okay.
questions, feel free to inbox me.
Okay. Also, the lesson two, or I think it was the revision. Where are they the corrections for the program that we're busy with?
What do you mean?
You sent this file. I think it has a background and it was a code, a full code about the welcome to the second lesson, learning to code in 22 days, and then it were to create a write file, rename, delete, and delete a paragraph, and then it was the elif where to use the
Oh,
try
okay,
function.
yeah. So were you in the previous sessions?
I was not, so I tried doing it myself, and
But did you see you saw the notes of the previous sessions?
yeah, I did.
Okay, okay, okay. So are you talking about some? Let me see if I can find. Are you talking about these notes?
Okay, let me just
Are you
get
talking
back.
about this?
Let me see. Yeah, yeah. I saw this ones. I saw this one.
Okay,
So
so this is like this one that we're doing now came before this, but I just felt like I needed to do this again because people are not understanding the basics.
oh,
But yeah, this is like the first thing. So we start here and then we come here. We started here
oh,
and then we came here, but then now we're
okay.
going back here because, yeah, I don't think people
Oh,
got
so
this
this
part
was the
really
first
well.
lesson, first lesson, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we will touch on that the following time.
No, we know. We've already completed this one.
No, I'm saying the Elif ones. Or it's
Yeah, no,
also
we've
done.
already done that.
It's done. Eh?
Yeah, we completed it. Unless if you have questions about the program you saw, uh, or regarding the slides, you might just feel free to like ask them on the group, and I'll answer you.
Okay, no
Yeah,
problem. Yeah.
but this lesson it's done.
Okay, sharp. I'll just send you the error that I'm getting. Then yeah,
Okay.
I'll show you.
So for this week we're gonna have two more sessions.
Okay.
So what we're gonna be touching on, give me a second to just look at what we're gonna be touching on. So yes, end of this week, Friday, is gonna be our last lesson. But yeah, if you have any more questions, feel free to just ask. And yeah, if you'd like me to, I'd like to build. There's gonna be more courses using what we learned. So here's the plan is that we're starting with this. So you see how now we're building a command line program. So in future lessons, we're gonna be building this stuff as a web application. But first, we'll need to touch on like how to build web applications in Python, databases, all that stuff. So this program, this is how it's starting. But as we progress with with courses and lessons, this is gonna get turned into a web application, and then we're gonna be able to create a file using the web, using your browser. You're gonna go to the web application, hosting. So that's where we're gonna be going as we go forward.
Okay.
But that's gonna be a separate course, but it will be building on stuff you learned here.
Sharp. Different in different languages or
No, in Python.
in Python.
Python.
Okay.
Yeah. So like again, uh, the goal is to just make sure that you guys know Python and you're able to build stuff with it.
Sharp.
So yes, including web applications, and that's what I'm going to be touching on as we more courses are going to be um, created, and then we'll touch on web applications.
Okay. No
So
problem.
so so for the next lesson, we're going to be touching on data structures and perhaps algorithms because if you look at the program I sent with those notes you referred to,
Yeah.
when it comes to deleting paragraph, we have an algorithm that some people may not understand what's going. Yeah, so here, yeah, like this deletes the paragraph. Some people may not understand what's going on. So I want to just first touch into algorithms. What's an algorithm? Or how do algorithm? The whole deal about algorithms, and then I'll also just explain this what it does and why we chose to do this, and then after that we'll also touch on data structures because this is you see here this is like an example of data structure. So we're storing stuff here in a list, and then here we're using that stuff here. So future lessons are just going to be about that. The next two lessons, so there's one tomorrow and there's another one on Friday, and then after that we should be done with our limited word processor program. So
Okay.
it's going to be done. We'll run it and then we'll be done. So by Friday you will be building a a complete Python program because it's a complete Python program.
Okay. Sharp.
Yeah. Anything else?
That will be all.
Okay, so guys, I'm gonna create a feedback form. I'll share it on the group. Please do respond.
Sharp.
It means a
No
lot when you
problem.
do so. And I'm able to also improve the courses and the way in which they offered to make sure that you guys really benefit from them. So please do answer the feedback form that I'll send out after this meeting.
Sharp. No
Sure, sure.
problem.
Thank you guys. Have an amazing evening.
Yeah.
Same to you.
Likewise. Sharp.
Cheers.